What's going on, guys? This is Ian Ewing coming at you with a bonus episode of Titletown Talk. I told you guys we would do it, and we are going to do it. We are going to, since we reached the halfway point, take a look at all my bold predictions going into the season. Really quickly, just see how they've aged, see if I was onto something or way off. Spoiler alert, I was onto something a few times and way off on some others. So we will go through those on this episode. I'm going to do it with no notes, just kind of ad-libbing it, having a little fun with it. Let's start with the first one, which was Jordan Love is going to look like his 2023 self and throw for 30-plus touchdowns and 4,200 yards. Well, I would say this one has looked pretty good so far. Jordan is, in my opinion, he looks better than he did in most of that stretch in 2023. I would say consistently he's been better this season. There were some games in there that I don't know if we've seen the level of this year yet. The Chiefs game being one of them. That was one of the most impressive games I've ever seen from a Packers quarterback, let alone Jordan Love. He looked really good against the Vikings at the end of that season, the Bears game as well. I would say overall, though, this is trending pretty well. As far as the 4,200 yards, he's definitely trending over that, but he's not trending for 30-plus touchdowns at this point. However, still 9 games left. He's at 12, so he needs 18 in 9 games. He needs to do about 2 a game. I think he could probably do that. To this point, he's averaging about 1.6 per game. So I do think that this one has aged pretty well to this point. Jordan, up until last week, was top 5 in all the MVP conversations. And that was another part of this bold predictions that I said was he's going to be in the MVP conversation all year long. And so far, that's been true. The game didn't look so good to the outside against the Panthers, so he definitely fell out of favor, we'll just say, after that game, despite the fact that I thought he looked pretty good in that one. I would say this bold prediction, we'll grade it at a B+ at this point. We'll see where he ends up after the season. Number 2, Marshawn Lloyd is going to be a real factor in 2025 and will lead to Josh Jacobs' release in 2026. This one's interesting. Marshawn Lloyd has not played yet. We just found out this week that Marshawn Lloyd, he went out west to California to get checked out by some crazy professionals or specialists, I should say, to see if there's some sort of muscle imbalances in his body that's leading to all these soft tissue injuries. Apparently, everything came back pretty good over there. LaFleur did say he's not close to returning, so we shall see if we see Marshawn Lloyd in 2025 or not. I do think if he comes back, he's going to look pretty good. I wrote this prior to the Micah Parsons deal, by the way, and I also recorded this after the first preseason game, I believe. So there was a game where Marshawn Lloyd looked pretty damn good in the preseason against the Colts when he did play. If he does play, I do think that this could come. It's an F currently, we'll say, but maybe he could get up to a C if he looks decent. The second part of this, Josh Jacobs getting released, I do think there's a really, really, really outside possibility that still happens. He has made, he's turned shit into chocolate this year with some of what he's been giving to run, to say the least. The run blocking has been significantly worse this year than it was last year. So it's hard to blame Josh Jacobs for the run game this year, but it wouldn't shock me if they look to move off of that contract after this season. They're going to have to make some tough choices because of that Micah Parsons deal. So I'll give this one an F at this point, but, this could look better in a few weeks. We'll see. Number 3, Dontavian Wicks will emerge as the Packers' number 1 wide receiver that we've been waiting for. This one's obviously an F. He had looked pretty good in the first couple games in terms of he's not dropping the ball anymore. He's still getting open, but then he injured his knee. His calf, I think it is actually. And it does look like he's going to make his debut here in Week 10 against the Eagles, which I think is exciting. No one has really emerged as like a bona fide number 1. I would say the closest to that, obviously, was Tucker Kraft, which we'll get to in a second. Romeo Doubs is definitely the number 1 wide receiver to this point, but this was written in more of like the dominant number 1 that they go to when they need to play. And nobody's really become that. It certainly hasn't been Dontavian Wicks. I'll give this one an F as well. Number 4, Tucker Kraft will get all pro votes and develop into the best tight end in football, one of the best tight ends in football. This one I have to give an A. I'll give it a B+ because obviously he got hurt. But if he didn't get hurt, I do think that this would have come to fruition. Tucker Kraft looked like the best tight end in football prior to his injury last week. that makes it all the more devastating they did get hurt, right? I will say, candidly, I think he's going to get paid like the best tight end in football, and I do think he deserves that. And look, again, All-Pro is voted by the players. The players would probably take the side on this. And, Brock Bowers has been hurt. There hasn't been another tight end. Maybe the guy from McBride. Sorry, I couldn't think of his name for a second on the Cardinals. But ultimately, I think this one aged pretty well. I'll give this one a B+. Number 5, Lucas Van Ness will take a big step in his third season and have a similar season to Rashawn Gary in his third year. That second part is tough because, Gary was healthy that whole season in 2021 and he had 83 pressures. So homie went off that year. I do think Lucas Van Ness has taken a big step though. And I do think one of the reasons we haven't seen the dominant pass rush that we saw early in the season is because LVN's been hurt. And I do think him being hurt has hurt the run defense also. So I would give this one a B+ as well. If it weren't for his injury, I do think that we would continue to see that growth. But the last game he played was the Bengals game, and he had an insanely good sack on Joe Flacco in that game. Again, been a really underrated run defender, somebody that I think has got some exciting upside. They're going to need him back. And we just heard from LaFleur today. He said that LVN's, I think it's it's a foot injury. His foot injury was it took longer to heal than they anticipated, but he's going to be back sooner than later, he said. So I do think they've missed him pretty bad, and I think that he's going to continue to contribute this season. So I'll give that one a B+. The next one, Devontae Wyatt, will be the Packers' most consistent pass rusher in 2025. Well, obviously when I typed up the notes here and we recorded the bold predictions, I did not know that Micah Parsons would be a Green Bay Packer. He has been obviously the most consistent pass rusher on the team. However, if you take Micah Parsons out prior to Devontae Wyatt getting injured, this has actually become pretty good. It's aged well. He's been back for 2 games. He came back against the Steelers 2 weeks ago, and then he played against the Panthers last week, obviously. And he's looked pretty good, but prior to the injury, he looked like the best pass rusher on the Packers aside from Parsons. So I do think this one aged pretty well. I'll give this one a B+. Again, you have to take the context into play. I'm not trying to absolve myself too much here, but I do think this one aged pretty well. And they're going to need Devontae Wyatt to play like he did early in the season. And so far, since he's been back from injury, it hasn't looked as good as we would hope, but I digress. Hopefully this week we see a return to form for Wyatt. Next one, Rashawn Gary will finally eclipse 10 sacks. That one looks pretty damn good. I'll give that one an A because he's got 7.5 so far. He's never got more than 9 in a season. And he's got 7.5 now. He essentially needs to get 2.5 sacks in the next 9 games. I feel pretty good about that happening. And, Rashawn Gary going into this season, when I recorded the Bold Predictions episode, he was thought to be the main pass rushing threat on the team, probably going to get a lot of double teams. He has been the beneficiary of all the Micah Parsons double teams to this point. And, he is, it's shown up. 7.5 sacks in 8 games is pretty damn good. He's averaging almost a sack a game. So this one's definitely going to come true. I would be shocked if it didn't. So I'll give that one an A-. We'll say A-. Because I wrote it kind of in the context of he would be the pass rusher on the team, but I digress. Edgerrin Cooper will be an All-Pro and take another massive step this season. Well, this one looked pretty good the first 4 weeks of the season. I got to say, since that Cowboys game, it has not looked so great. He's been playing well. Certainly, he's been very good, but he's not been All-Pro good this season. And I think his regression, I won't call it regression, but his lack of continuing to take a step, I was going to say continuous steppage, LOL, it has impacted their run defense. Their run defense has not been what it was early in the season. And if you watch that Lions game, that's the best running game in the entire NFL, in my opinion. Probably the only other one that rivals it would be the Falcons running game. And look, he single-handedly wrecked that game. And I do think Edge Cooper has that in him. I think we're going to see that again, hopefully, because last year in the second half, that's when he kind of figured it out. And I do think they've asked him to do a lot more coverage stuff. And they kind of just need to let him play free and come downhill. And I do think that, he made his presence known last year against the Eagles in both games, and I hope that he shows up this week against the Eagles as well. So I'll give this one a B. I would say he hasn't really taken a step. He's looked good. Well, I'll give this one a C because he didn't get to be an all-pro. And he has taken a little bit of a step, so not a massive step. So I'll give this one a B. Nah, you know what? I'll give it a C. You guys know I'm just doing this off the cuff. I'll give this one a C. But I do like what I've seen from Edge Cooper. I do think that we will see improved play the second half of the season. The next one's funny. Nate Hobbs will finish with a better PFF grade this season than Jair Alexander. Well, so far that one is, I'm going to give it a B+, but it's technically true so far. He has a better PFF grade than Jair. But I wrote this in the context of he's going to be playing well and better than Jair Alexander. Well, this one's only true because Jair's played so damn bad. And obviously when we wrote this, we knew that he was probably going to start for the Ravens, and he did the first game, and then he got benched, and he has only played in 3 games this season and just got traded to the Eagles for chump change. So obviously this has aged well on the Jair side of it, but Nate Hobbs has been the Packers' worst cornerback. And, he's been battling injury this whole season. You could easily chalk up some of that to injury. I do, personally. I think we're going to see a better Nate Hobbs when he gets back. But this one has not aged well in terms of Nate Hobbs being good. So I'll give this one we'll give it a C. We'll give it a C. Next one. The Packers' offense and defense will be top 7 in the NFL in 2025. This one is, I'm going to give this one an A because that is so far, that is the case. If we look at DVOA, let me see if I can find it. Of course I can't. They are currently, let's see. Well, in terms of rankings, they are 8th in yards per game on offense and 5th in yards per game on defense. So pretty damn close. DVOA-wise, though, they are top 7 in both. So I will say it's looking pretty good. DVOA matters more than the traditional rankings. As you guys know, I'm a huge DVOA guy. I will continue to be. And this one's looking pretty good. I do think offensively, the fact that they're a top 10 offense with the running game being, to put it gently, pedestrian, I think it's a massive testament to the ceiling this team has. There's been a lot of conversation about the defense, and rightfully so. I think they've been very good this season. They've been better than they were last year, and that's without the help of turnovers, by the way, which should come at some point. They've been really good. And we still are talking every week about the secondary being bad. And, they just ran for 125 yards, all that stuff. Guys, if the offense reaches its ceiling, it won't matter how good the defense is. Spoiler alert. That's how good the offense can be. And that all starts with better offensive line play, which we didn't think was going to be an issue coming into the season, and it is. And it comes with the running game just being better in general. And I do think that they got better last year. I shouldn't say got better late because they were pretty damn good early, but the weather's about to get cold. Josh Jacobs runs like a, bat out of hell. So I do think that the cold temperatures is going to help him run a bit more tough. And I do think that we're going to see an improvement in the run game, which should take this offense to new heights, I really hope. The second to last one here, the Packers will win the NFC North in 2025. I'll give this a B+ at this point because currently they're leading the NFC North halfway through the season at 5-2-1. I still feel like this is probably true, but I'm just really nervous. We knew the NFC North was going to be good this season. The Bears have been good so far. They're 5-3. The Lions are also 5-3. The Vikings are, I believe, 4-4. Let me check that out really quick. Sorry, guys. I'm just doing this off the cuff. Let's see if I can't find the Vikings record. Let's see. The Vikings are 4-4. Yep. So they're 500 so far. They have not looked good. I think the Vikings are actually a bad team. Well, I shouldn't say bad. They're not a good team. They're certainly not what they were last year. I did want to do an NFL episode of bold predictions, and one of them was going to be that the Vikings would finish last place in the NFC North. So far, that's looking pretty good. Another one that I had was that the Giants would be better than the Commanders this year. That's also looking pretty good. The Chiefs would miss the playoffs. That was another one, and they probably won't miss the playoffs, but anyway, I had some good ones in there, and I wish I had talked more about the Vikings. I'm not very high on that team. They did beat the Lions last week. You got to tip your cap. I do think they're still a tough out. But the NFC North overall, it's still a 2-horse race in my opinion. It's still Lions, Packers. The Lions are 5-3 at the break. The Packers are 5-2-1. They face off in Thanksgiving. I think whoever wins that Thanksgiving game is probably going to win the NFC North. So because the Packers have the Eagles this week, and then the Lions have them next week. So if the Packers were to lose this week to the Eagles, which I predicted in my previous episode, if you haven't listened to it, check it out. I will say I think the Eagles will beat the Lions next week, and if they do, the Bears could end up being the number 1 team in the NFC North. That's terrifying to think about. But again, I do think it's still a 2-horse race. I think this one still aged pretty well. My final one was the Packers would make it to the NFC Championship and lose. Obviously, we can't grade that one to this point. But I do think that when they've played really, really well, they look like the best team in the NFL. And I firmly believe that. That's not a homer take. The team we saw against the Steelers in the second half, the team we saw in the first 2 games against the Commanders and the Lions, that team can win the Super Bowl. I think that team is still in there. I think the reason why we've been seeing what we've been seeing is, when we've been forgetting it, guys, this is the youngest team in the entire NFL for the 3rd year in a row. Young teams do stupid shit. And ultimately, this is a younger team. They are younger this year than they were in 2023. At least I'm pretty certain that was the case. And in 2023, we had every excuse in the book for this team, with the penalties and the inconsistency, all that. The only reason we're judging it differently this year is a lot of these guys are in their 3rd year and 4th year in some cases. So I do think that their inconsistency is mostly due to a young team trying to figure itself out. And if they can rally and we can see what we saw at the end of 2023, I do think this team is a Super Bowl contender. And I do think that it starts after this week. I think the Eagles are going to come in and win it. I hope to God I'm wrong. Every time I predicted that they lose, they've won. So hopefully I'm wrong again. But we'll see, guys. Anyway, hope you enjoyed this little bonus episode of Titletown Talk. As you can see, overall, I give the bold predictions a B. We'll recap them one more time. Jordan Love's going to look like the 2023 version of himself. Marshawn Lloyd's going to be a real factor in 2025, and that will lead to Josh Jacobs' release in 2026. LOL. Dontavian Wicks will emerge as the Packers' number 1 wide receiver. LOL. Tucker Kraft will get all pro votes and develop into one of the best tight ends in the NFL. That one was good. Lucas Van Ness will take a step, have a similar season to Rashawn Gary in 2021. Pretty good there. Devontae Wyatt will be the Packers' most consistent pass rusher. He is outside of Micah Parsons, who was not on the team when I recorded this. Rashawn Gary will eclipse 10 sacks. Edge Cooper will be an all-pro and have a massive step. Sort of right. Nate Hobbs will be better than Jair Alexander from a PFF standpoint. That one's true. Although I didn't say it in the context, you guys know what I said. The Packers' offense and defense will be top 7 in 2025. That one looks good. And the Packers will win the NFC North in 2025. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed this little bonus episode. Feel free to send me a comment, send me a question. I would love to do a few more of these where we just pop on quick and do a little record ski. I will see you guys in the recap, hopefully recapping a Packers win next week. Thank you guys for listening, and go Pack Go.